We are in the full swing of NFL draft season. 30 teams have been eliminated. The Senior Bowl is going on right now, and we are inching closer and closer to the 2025 NFL draft. So for today's video, I wanted to look back at somebody that was considered one of the draft GOATs. We'll see if he still has it. I want to react to ESPN's 2025 NFL mock draft by Mel Kiper. So what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? We're pretty much going to do what I just said. We are going to react to this new ESPN mock draft, which I'm excited for. It is an ESPN Plus article, so maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, here you go. I'm going to show you their exclusive content. So let's get into this, and you can let me know what you think of this mock draft down below. Do you think their pick fits your team's need? I'll let you know if I like it or not. And this is Mel Kiper's first mock draft for the 2025 class. So he still has Cam Ward going number 1, and that's what I think as well. I feel like there has been a little bit of steam just because I guess outside of the Titans just needing a quarterback, Will Levis just didn't get it done this year. They haven't really been linked to Cam Ward a ton yet. This can obviously happen a ton when private workouts will eventually happen, the combine, all that. But the new GM basically said that they are going to look for the generational talent in this draft. And is that Travis Hunter, a player that can play both corner and receiver? Is that Abdul Carter? I think it's looking more like those two guys do have a very good chance at going number 1. We don't even know if Tennessee loves Cam Ward that way. Like maybe they like Shedeur Sanders. That had just been some of the new rumblings, like when Mike Borgonzi ended up being the new general manager after they fired Rand Carthen. So that was a little bit interesting. If I were them, I would still go Cam Ward. I think if he like finds himself to be Brian Callahan's pick, I think that matters way more than Mike Borgonzi's pick. But who knows though, maybe if Callahan doesn't like Cam Ward as much, they don't do well their rookie year, Callahan could be gone next year because the Titans had a disappointing year. I think maybe if they exceeded expectations, that would have been playoff bound in the AFC. They ended up with the worst record, but hey, that's okay if you can get your franchise quarterback. I just don't love the idea of taking maybe Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter here and then taking a chance on Jalen Milroe in the second round. If you can think you could sign a Justin Fields to operate your system around him or sign Sam Darnold, then I'd be okay with Hunter or Abdul Carter 1. But if not, I'd like Cam Ward over Russell Wilson, Jalen Milroe, and any of those guys. I know it's Milroe and Hunter or Milroe and Carter, but I think I just like Cam Ward a little bit more if you do think he could be a franchise quarterback. So at number 2, we do have the Cleveland Browns taking Travis Hunter. Perfectly fine with this. I mean, if Cam Ward doesn't go number 1, then I would think about Cam Ward 2, just because Sean Watson may miss most of, if not all of next year's regular season. And you're trying to find your quarterback for the future. And you don't really want to prolong this period of just being in QB limbo, and then maybe in 2-3 years, you got to find your new quarterback. It's going to be a new GM. Stefanski may be gone, but I do like them going Travis Hunter. I really wonder who their quarterback is going to be next year. Is it going to be somebody that's on the roster? I don't think it's going to be Jameis, and Deshaun Watson, I think you're giving up on that. So maybe they are going to draft one in the second round. Like maybe they are a Jackson Dart team or a Kyle McCord team or a Will Howard team. We'll see. Or do they end up with a Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers or somebody like that in free agency? We'll see. Big question marks for the Cleveland Browns next year because you can't really go into week 1 with like Jameis as your 1. Maybe I don't know, maybe it is a day 2 quarterback and then you have like Deshaun Watson waiting to come back. I just feel like that's not that exciting for your future. We have Shedeur Sanders going to the Giants at number 3. I mean, this makes sense. They desperately need a quarterback. And if they're not going to get one of the guys in free agency, I don't think Sam Darnold wants to go back to MetLife, and you miss out on Cam Ward number 1. You got to go Shedeur Sanders here at 3. And I'm sure Dion would like for Shedeur to play in a big market. You're immediately going to get him a wide receiver 1 in Malik Neighbors. You have a serviceable running back in Tyron Tracy. And you do have some solid offensive linemen. Andrew Thomas fully healthy. Hopefully Evan Neal's better if they don't decide to trade him. But I do think Shedeur can succeed. We'll see. Like Brian Daboll can be a good offensive-minded head coach. We'll see if it really works out next year, because this is pretty much for Daboll and Shane's job. Because if they draft Shedeur and he doesn't work out, they're fired. If they don't draft a quarterback and they're running like, I don't know, like it's maybe a Kirk Cousins or somebody like that out there next year and it also doesn't do well, they could be gone. So I think the Giants probably would like Cam Ward, so I'm sure they would love to see Tennessee pass up on Cam Ward, but then I'm sure Cleveland would get a ton of calls at 2 to take a quarterback. And hey, maybe Tennessee ends up trading down if they really like a Mason Graham or somebody like that. So at number 4, we do have the New England Patriots snagging Abdul Carter, somebody that's getting a lot of hype with the number 1 overall pick. We'll see if Mike Vrabel is going to like him as obviously a defensive-minded head coach. Bringing him in over Ted McMillan could make some more sense because of a value standpoint. Like, are you reaching on Ted McMillan just because you need a receiver? Or do you truly think he could be a wide receiver 1 in this league? Because I would throw all the eggs at the T. Higgins basket. It's a good receiving free agent class. It could be a good receiving trade market as well. I'm not saying they're going to go out and get Tyreek Hill, or I don't even think it'd be wise to get Cooper Kupp, but you could definitely land some receivers in free agency or the trade market because it's not the deepest receiver class in the world. And maybe it's different minds in there, but last year they drafted Jalen Polk in the second round. An absolute disaster of a pick. So I think getting Abdul Carter is huge here. Him and Keon White in that front seven would be really good. And then you have Christian Gonzalez as your cornerback one. And you're trying to bring the Patriots back to the old ways and have a true elite defense in the NFL. And I think Abdul Carter could be the number one on a lot of people's big boards, and I'm going to create my big board as we get throughout a little bit closer to the NFL draft, and getting maybe the number one guy at number 4, hey, that's a home run. So at 5, we do have Mason Graham going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the way that this draft board is falling, I think it's pretty much him, or you end up going with Will Campbell from LSU. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but you're just making your already solid D-line a little bit better, or just front 7, because you already have Joshua Hines-Allen. You already have Trayvon Walker. Get Mason Graham, maybe a top 3 talent in this class there at number 5 to really just have an elite defensive pass rush. That could be huge for the Jaguars going forward. I'm fine with Brian Thomas Jr. and like Parker Washington, Evan Ingram, and what you can get out of maybe Christian Kirk or Gabe Davis next year at your receiving core. You could look at Will Johnson as well, the corner, just because they do have a lot of question marks. But if Mason Graham's on the board, I think you're getting a top 3 talent there at number 5, because Shador and Cam Ward on paper, not really top 3 talents. It's just they're going high because of the quarterback tax. I think Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Mason Graham are probably the 3 best guys in this class. So at number 6, we do have the Raiders going Ted McMillan. I don't know if I love this. Obviously, they end up losing out on Shador and Cam Ward in this mock. Yeah, they could look to add a receiver just because outside of Jacoby Myers, it's not like deep there. They traded away Devontae Adams. And yeah, you do have an elite tight end already after 1 year in Brock Bowers. I just feel like this team has so many other needs. But if you do believe that Ted McMillan could be a true wide receiver 1, I say go for it. I just think it's a little high at 6 for the Raiders, who have a ton of question marks on the offensive line, on pretty much every aspect of the defensive side of the field. Maybe outside of edge rusher, because you do have Max Crosby and the 2023 first-round pick, Tyree Wilson. But you hit a home run on the Brock Bowers pick. They have a new GM, Pete Carroll's head coach, a new part-time owner or minority owner in Tom Brady. We'll see who their quarterback's going to be. But honestly, if they take a chance on a bridge quarterback and say that is going to be Russell Wilson, a reunion with Pete Carroll, getting him Ted McMillan could be a very good option. And you're going to have him, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers. Those are a lot better of weapons offensively for Russell Wilson than what he had in Pittsburgh. But this could be a Sam Darnold spot as well if Tom Brady and Pete Carroll really find something they like in Darnold. So speaking of Darnold, we have the Jets here going outside linebacker, Michael Williams. I think with DJ Reed becoming a free agent, I would look at Will Johnson here. You're not taking a quarterback at 7. I think for the Jets, you're trying to evaluate who you like on day 2. Either that being a Howard, a Dart, Quinn Ewers, maybe a Kyle McCord, and you have them maybe compete with Tyrod Taylor next year. It sucks, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback for the future. And if he's like, I haven't made up my mind what I want to do, you just trade him or cut him. You can't have him be half in, half out going into the draft or free agency. You got to figure out what you guys need going forward with or without Aaron Rodgers. I really like the hire of Aaron Glenn. And I think getting Michael Williams obviously can help a lot with Hassan Reddick. Not going to be here next year. That was a disaster. And you add him to a solid defensive line, but it could definitely be better. Maybe that is a position of need for the Jets, but I think there's a lot of guys maybe in that Michael Williams tier when you talk about Nick Scorton, James Pierce, Shamar Stewart. Trade down maybe. I kind of like that idea for the Jets if this was the way the board's fallen and if they're not going to take Will Johnson. We got Jalen Walker going to the Panthers at number 8. I think they need to address defense, but the way that this draft is falling, honestly, like going back to the Jets, going back to the Raiders, like even the Jags, like Will Campbell still on the board. I think the Patriots could be in play for Will Campbell at 4. But I get it. If Abdul Carter's on the board, you go him. But you could protect Drake May. They had a horrible offensive line last year. Protect Trevor Lawrence. Protect your next quarterback in Vegas. And I think you could protect your next quarterback. And you have Olu Fashanu, and then you would have Will Campbell. That's something going forward. But obviously, they have some veteran offensive linemen they can bring back. John Simpson worked out. And then obviously, you have Elijah Vera Tucker. I think Carolina at 8. I like the idea of going Will Campbell. I know their defense was abysmal last year, and they really just need to take any of the top defensive guys. It's funny because I feel like the Panthers were so bad last year, and they're picking 8, so you're going to lose most likely out on one of the top defensive guys in Carter, Travis Hunter, or Mason Graham. You could go Will Johnson here. I mean, I don't hate the idea of going Jalen Walker defense, but I think just trying to get a little bit more time for Bryce Young to throw the football, because you're going to get Robert Hunt like fully healthy, acclimated into this offense. Yeah, you can get Walker on the defense with Horn and Derek Brown. I think I'd go Will Campbell, who they don't have going 9. They have Will Johnson going 9. Now, they did trade Marshawn Lattimore at the deadline. The Saints are an absolute mess. It's looking like that their next head coach could be Kellen Moore. We won't know that till after the Super Bowl. Is it going to be Joe Brady? Probably not. It looks like Cliff Kingsbury doesn't want to be the coach, or Mike McCarthy. I don't know who would want the Saints job, because you're most likely going to be very bad next year. They are so far over the cap, projected $70 million over the cap, and they're going to have to cut a lot of guys. This team is going to get a lot worse. They need to get younger. I think Will Johnson's good value at 9. You're getting arguably the best corner. Obviously, it's him or Travis Hunter in this draft. I think I'd go Will Campbell just to protect whoever your next quarterback is going to be. Is it on the roster with Carr or Rattler? Is it somebody on day 2, day 3, or just a veteran that they pick up in free agency? Maybe. But I think you got to protect that guy going forward, because you want to get at least as much depth there as possible. I would go the other Will Campbell. So Mel Kiper has Will Campbell going 10 to the Bears. Now, if he falls to 10, this is a home run draft pick for them. Maybe in hindsight, they could have drafted another offensive lineman last year at pick number 9 when they ended up getting Rome Odunze. But I still like Odunze and DJ Moore going forward with Caleb, because Keenan Allen was always like a 1-year thing for them. And Will Campbell, obviously, him and Darnell Wright tackle spots together. I think they've been linked to Trey Smith a ton, and then now you're going to really have a foundational offensive line to protect Caleb Williams. So I think Will Campbell goes a lot higher than 10. Too much of a premier value on offensive tackle, and almost every single team going up here needs an offensive tackle, maybe outside of the Tennessee Titans, but every team could use a tackle. And if it's going to be a cornerstone one, not as good as like Joe Alt, but I think he would have been like the second best tackle in last year's class. Home run pick for the Bears here at 10. I don't think Will Campbell's there at 10. 49ers get Kelvin Banks at 11. I do think they should go offensive tackle outside of Trent Williams. It hasn't been great since, Mike McGlinchey left 2 years ago to Denver. Trent Williams is getting up there in age, going to be 37 at the start of next year's season. We got to protect Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's going to get paid a lot of money. He's got solid weapons right now. If they could stay healthy, you can add Kelvin Banks to really give them at least a foundation on the offensive line going forward. Get younger there and protect Purdy, who they believe is their franchise quarterback. So at number 12, we have the Dallas Cowboys not going Ashton Genty. It's a mock draft without Ashton going there to Dallas. I think that is possible that it doesn't happen, and they could definitely use somebody like Luther Burden. And if they're smart, I know Ashton Genty is in a tier of his own, but this running back class is so deep with Caleb Johnson, Amarian Hampton, Cam Scatabo, Trayvon Henderson. It's a elite running back class compared to last year. The wide receiver class, not as deep. And there's a drop-off outside, in my opinion, of Ted McMillan and Luther Burden. Mecca, Buka, or maybe somebody like Matthew Golden can be good receivers in this league. Other guys projected to go there in the first round for sure, but I think like there is a drop-off after Luther Burden, who I know put up some bad numbers this year relative to his standards at Missouri, but they need somebody outside of CeeDee Lamb for Dak next year, because Jake Ferguson, good player, but can have his injuries at times at the tight end spot. We need an upgrade over Brandon Cooks, Kevontae Turpin at the receiver spot, and Jalen Tolbert as well. So I think getting somebody like Burden at 12 might be more important for Dallas. And then you could draft a day 2 running back to at least compete with Rico Dowdle next year. Because the free agency running back class is pretty rough. Malachi Starks here at 13. I think I'd like them trading down. But if Starks is on the board, I like this a ton, because Holland and Jordan Poyer are going to be free agents this offseason. This team is fairly expensive with Teron Armstead, Tua. We'll see what happens with Tyreek Hill, and they may have to absorb some dead money there. Jalen Waddle is getting more expensive. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. This team is getting expensive, and they didn't make the playoffs. I think they would have made the playoffs if Tua didn't get hurt, but they did go 8-9 regardless, and you're not going to be able to afford both Holland and Poyer, in my opinion. You could draft the best safety in this class in Malachi Starks. And honestly, from a value standpoint, if you believe he fits your defensive system, this is a home run pick. This is great value for them at 13. 14, something I've been mocking a ton, Tyler Warren to Indianapolis. It's now or never for Anthony Richardson. I still think you should give him probably 2 more years before you make a decision there, but getting Tyler Warren can complete this offense, because if you can bring back Will Fries, we'll see if they're able to do that. They should, right? Like, Richardson's still on his rookie contract. You have Quentin Nelson. You have some really good offensive line talent. You got Pittman, Downs, Pierce, and Mitchell. Some combo there is going to work. Either it's Downs and Pittman, either it's Mitchell and Pittman, or Pierce and Downs. 2 of those guys will work out as your long-term answers, and you get Tyler Warren, who could be an absolute beast for Anthony Richardson, both in the run game and in the pass game. And if he's there at 14, I would take him 100%. I think Miami should try to bring back Johnny Smith. Kind of thinking who would draft a tight end. Cowboys, no. Niners, no. Bears, probably not. States at 9, I don't know. They could shock us. Panthers at 8 could definitely shock us if they believe Warren is a better offensive weapon than Ted McMillan. But if Tyler Warren is there at 14, I think there's a solid chance he will be. That is a no-brainer pick for the Colts, which probably means it's not going to happen. At number 15, we have the Atlanta Falcons going defensive end. They got to go defense here, 100%. And Mel Kiper has them taking Shamar Stewart. I would maybe like James Pierce a little bit more here at 15, but they have to address the pass rush, as Matthew Judon wasn't great last year, and he's getting up there in age, and this team did not have a great just defense overall throughout the 2024 season. I think you're fine offensively with Michael Penix and Drake London, Mooney. We'll see about Pitts, but Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, great running back duo. You got to address defense. So I like the idea. I would like Pierce a little bit more, but maybe Mike Green as well from Marshall, who's killing it at the Senior Bowl. But fine with Stewart. At least he has them addressing defensive line. Tyler Booker here at 16. I wonder where he's going to go, because do you put a premier value on like an interior offensive lineman at a guard? And maybe Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks ends up moving to guard eventually, and they could still go high, and centers may go higher than offensive guards sometimes. But Tyler Booker is by far the best interior offensive lineman in this draft. Cardinals definitely need one, and I think the Seahawks could use one in a couple picks. I think some other teams could use an offensive lineman as well at the guard spot, especially if the Colts like lose Will Fries. Like, that could be somebody that can help them out going forward. But I like the Cardinals addressing Tyler Booker. I think, yeah, getting James Pierce, Mike Green, or even Nick Scorton here, but Mel Kiper thinks it's a reach to snag one of those guys, and their defense maybe exceeded expectations last year, while their offense was underwhelming. So I'm fine with them getting Tyler Booker. I think we got to try to protect Kyler Murray to figure out if he is the guy going forward, as we're getting further and further into that massive extension. We have Jahad Campbell going to the Bengals at 17. I think they need to address defense 100%. I don't think I would take like Emeka Egbuka here or Golden. Just, I wouldn't take a receiver to replace T. Higgins, because I think Joe Burrow can make it work with Jamar Chase, and if it's Burden or Yoshivasa, they take a flyer on a veteran in free agency, go do that. They have to address defense. They snag Campbell here, probably one of the better off-ball linebackers after Jalen Walker's off the board, depending where Walker ends up. So he is Seattle going Armin Membu from Missouri, played very well in a good conference last year at Missouri, and I'm fine with the idea. The Seattle needs to draft an offensive lineman. It was one of the worst units in the NFL last year, outside of like Charles Cross. They don't really have too much going forward, depending on the future of some guys, but I think just getting Membu there from Missouri, it's a good idea. There's some other guys on the board. Like, do you like Wyatt Millum? Do you like Gray Zabel here at 18? Zabel having a good Senior Bowl so far, but we'll see how the combine goes. I like the idea of just them snagging an offensive lineman. At 19, Tampa Bay going Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina, probably looked at as the second best safety in this class, next to Malachi Starks, but definitely I think close that gap later in the year. I think they could definitely address defense. It looks like they're going to try to go all in, bring back Chris Godwin. They lose Liam Cohen, their offensive coordinator, but they drafted Jalen McMillan fairly high last year, so I think they're going to address defense, and I think getting safety is probably a good spot for Tampa Bay here. If they don't want to go edge rusher, still some guys I like on the board, and he has Ashton Dempsey going number 20 to Denver. I mean, I love this. I do. I think Denver could address running back at 20, even with Gentry off the board, if they like a Marion Hampton here, if they end up liking Caleb Johnson here at 20, because they may not get him in the second round. They can always trade down, but getting Ashton Dempsey, man, this would be fun. I think Colson Loveland could make some sense here, but with Dempsey on the board and Javonte Williams being a free agent, I don't think the franchise running back is on this roster right now. And you give Bo Nix Ashton Dempsey, oh my God. That is electric going forward. So I love that if he's on the board there. I do wonder, because I think Gentry could fall to 20, but is this going to be like another Bijan Robinson thing where he ends up going in the top 8? Like, he had a better season than Bijan. I think Bijan was a little bit better of a prospect for the NFL, but Ashton Dempsey could honestly go, number 9 in New Orleans. I mean, he's not going to the Jets. Like, could he go to the Raiders at 6? I wouldn't even say that's off the table, just because they need a running back, and I know it's a new Raiders regime in a way, but I wouldn't be totally shocked. What if the Jags? No, I'm just kidding. I don't think they're doing that. So he has the Steelers going wide receiver at 21, Emeka Egbuka. Honestly, if Ibuka's there, I would be very happy with that. Yeah, the last time the Steelers took a receiver in round 1 was 06. And the Steelers, I mean, they drafted well with Pickens in round 2. Like, that is a hit. It could have been like a Jalen Polk miss or somebody like that. The Steelers definitely need some corners as well. I think the Steelers need to draft. Like, I would be fine with them drafting 3 corners, 3 receivers, and like 2 quarterbacks in this draft if they had enough picks to do so, because receiver and corner, definitely some of the biggest needs if they don't address quarterback in free agency. And getting Emeka Egbuka probably is the wide receiver 3 in this class behind Tim McMillan and Luther Burden. So I'm fine with this, especially if they're going to look to trade George Pickens as well. But hey, you could have something with Egbuka and George Pickens for whoever the next quarterback it's going to be. Is it somebody in this draft, or is it going to be like Fields or Rosser? Maybe it's going to be Sam Darnold. Probably not, though. So we have Colson Loveland going 22 to the Chargers. I'd mock this a ton as well. So I feel like when everybody mocks it, not going to happen. But it makes so much sense. They need a tight end. Will Disley, I don't think is the future at that position. I think Justin Herbert can use a better, or just another weapon out there with Ladd McConkey. And Loveland put up some solid numbers, like 56 for 582 and 5 touchdowns in just honestly one of the worst offenses, or at least one of the worst passing offenses in the Big Ten, in a very good defensive conference. Like, he had a very good season. And then, yeah, you got the Jim Harbaugh, Michigan connection there with Loveland. So, makes total sense. And if he's there at 22, I think that's a home run pick. The only way I think he's not there is if Denver ends up going with him at 20. Maybe if Ashton Jeanty isn't there, they would just tight end, because it seems like it's like a 1A, not like a 1A, 1B, but a clear 1 and 2 with Warren and Loveland. And Denver could definitely use a tight end as well. 23, Mike Green going to the Green Bay Packers just feels like a Packers pick. He has had so much hype as of late, Mike Green. He had an insane Senior Bowl highlight as well. I would love for the Packers to address receiver. Like I said, though, not really a great receiver class in terms of depth. So, like, if Ibuka's off the board, I don't think they would take one here at 23, even though they could definitely use one. But getting Mike Green, I think, is still a solid pick for Green Bay going forward. So he's Green above. I don't think he had James Pierce go yet, which is crazy. I feel like Pierce has a wide range where I've seen him go like 9 or 10, and then here he doesn't have him in the top 24. Benjamin Morrison, I think, could also have a little bit of variance in his value just because he got banged up this year at Notre Dame. But a lot of people do have him as like the 3rd best corner in this draft outside of Travis Hunter and Will Johnson. Minnesota, I think, needs to address corner because they have a lot of guys that are hitting free agency. Maybe they looked at with Brian Flores not getting a head coaching job, and we know how good their pass rush is as well with guys like Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard going forward. So getting, I think, Benjamin Morrison, like, they need a corner here if they end up liking him, or like Trey Amos or somebody like that. Josh Simmons going to Texas at 25. We watched CJ Stroud have like no time to throw at times in the playoffs, so we got to protect their franchise quarterback, and he ended up going there at 25 just because he was banged up this year. And Ohio State, like, they were missing him when he went down initially. Josh Connerly, who I believe that was on the other end of the Mike Green highlight at the Senior Bowl. The Rams, I think, could also draft a tackle here. I wonder if they fell in love with a quarterback and they'd shock everybody to draft Matthew Stafford's eventual successor, because Stafford may have like 1 or 2 years left, and that's enough time for maybe Milroe, or I don't know, just behind Stafford. But I think that's high for somebody at 26, especially with Shador and Cam Ward most very likely being off the board at this time. So I don't mind them drafting a tackle here. The Rams have done a fantastic job drafting as of late, and I think they could draft a tackle here since they went a little bit more defensive heavy last year. Receiver also could be a need for them. Ravens at 27 getting Siobhan Ravel. I would not mind that for my Steelers a little bit earlier. Ravel, I think, has like a little bit of a Mike Green, like not in a top conference, a lot of hype as of late, and he could look to be one of the best corners in this draft. I wonder if Baltimore would take back-to-back corners in the first round, because last year they took Nate Wiggins, they have Marlon Humphrey. Could they go Siobhan Ravel, add to that secondary? Maybe. I think they could also address offensive line as well. He's got James Pierce going all the way 28 to the Lions. I mean, that is fantastic value. Him on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson out there to replace Adarius Smith, I think that'd be a home run draft pick. I'd be very surprised if James Pierce fell to 28. At 29, we have the Washington Commanders going Nick Scorton. I think another player that has a ton of variance in this draft. So he is like Pierce and Scorton going a little bit later in this class. I think Washington could look to add some defenders. It's going to be a very high tempo like conference in the NFC going forward, with Philly and Detroit, and Dallas should be better next year. And it's going to be a good division over there in the NFC East if the Giants do end up maybe drafting a good quarterback here. So I think they can go defense, because I don't think there's another good like receiver to take at 29. Maxwell Harrison, I mean, yeah, we saw how banged up Buffalo's secondary was in the playoffs. Kyer Elam doesn't look like the player they drafted a couple years ago out of Florida, so I think they could also go secondary there. I don't think they need to draft a receiver. I think Josh Allen, like, if he could make it work this year with that core, they don't really need to address it with the high pick going forward. I think secondary would be a wise pick. Maybe some other guys better than Maxwell Harrison. Sorry, I said Harrison before on the board, but we'll see. I think corner makes sense for them, though. We have Walter Nolan. I mean, Chiefs getting a stud there at 31. Oh my God, yeah, I didn't mention he went before, but Kenneth Grant to the Eagles at 32. That is insane. That is insane. How we cannot let the Eagles get either one of these two players here in this draft. I mean, I think a lot of teams could use a nose tackle, and Nolan's a beast. Grant's a beast. Oh my God, if the Eagles got Grant at 32, they may go back-to-back if they win it all this year. So that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this ESPN mock draft reaction. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you think of Mel Kiper's pick for your favorite team down below. Subscribe if you're not already for NFL draft content all off season long until we get up to the draft in April, and free agency and content around there, because the content will not be slowing down when the NFL season is over. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.